And a talking circle is a very ancient way that Native people used to meet and how they conducted themselves. So we want to talk about, because we believe that in this series, at certain places where there's breaks or you do process work or you look at the steps, we believe it's very powerful to use a circle process to do that. So we would like to explain how to use a circle and what some of the simple guidelines are to make the circle work. First of all, we understand that energy travels in a circle. So that is a way that interconnectedness takes place. Now there's a couple of guidelines that will make the circle very powerful. One of the guidelines is to think that the circle is sacred, that the circle is given to us by the Creator, and we sit in this circle, we must honor that, because we are now sitting in harmony with how the Creator made the universe. The second thing we're supposed to think about as we form this circle is we need to remember this. Consciously, each participant needs to remember that who you see here, what you hear in the circle, when you leave the circle, leave that in the circle. And when the circle meets again, then always remember the circle is sacred, who you see there, what you hear there, when you leave there, leave it there. Now, if that rule is followed consistently, then there's certain blessings that come from the circle. The first gift or blessing that comes from the circle will be you will start to get a feeling of belonging. And that's very, very important for the human being, is to feel like you belong. In fact, it's very, very basic, is to feel you belong. Because if you don't feel you belong, see, then you feel the opposite. Nobody wants me. So automatically, if you follow those guidelines, the circle will give you that gift. You will eventually get that feeling of belonging. And once you get the feeling of belonging, and you'll hear people say that, you know something, I feel like I belong to this circle, because it's a place that you can come, you can start to share it, and you don't hear all the rumors and gossip or whatever. So you have this sense of belonging. Then the circle will give you the second gift, and that's the sense of trust. And once the circle gets to that level of sense of trust, it's at that point where you can start sharing. You can start saying things that you may find yourself in a circle that you never think you would share with anyone else. And where does that ability come from? Well, it comes from the interconnectedness. It comes from that circle. Now, one of the types of talking circles that we use is we always have an object. In this case, I will just use this eagle fan. Usually, the person facilitating the circle, of which, by the way, anyone can facilitate a circle. You do not have to have a degree in facilitating circles. But if you take a look at the circle and you look at the four directions, you have east, south, west, and north. Usually the facilitator, they will take this object and they will say, I'd like to welcome everyone to the circle. We're really honored that you would be here. And we would ask them to say something in that way. Then often what you'll see next is someone will light some sage, or you could use cedar, or you could use sweetgrass. They will light some type of medicine, one of those three usually, and then they will bring that around, and the next thing they will do is they will smudge everyone. Then the facilitator will remind everyone that the circle is sacred, that who you see here, what you hear there, when you leave there, leave it there. They will tell that. Then the facilitator may start talking about a subject. So, for example, in this series, there will be times when you'll say, okay, we're going to talk about step 1, or we're going to talk about unmanageability. But the facilitator will pick a subject. Now, one of the types of circles is when the facilitator is done, usually the facilitator will sit to the left of the eastern door. So you leave a little space in the eastern door. The facilitator sits just to the left of the eastern door. Then when it's time to start sharing, then this facilitator would hand this feather, or the object, could be a talking stick, to the person on his or her left. Then that person would talk. Now, when that person is talking, no one else can speak. They say, honor the feather, or honor the object. So you let that person have their say. Then when they're done, they'll pass it to the next person, to the next person, to the next person, until it goes all the way around. Now, the circle, in that type of talking circle, you can't time it. But it has to make a complete trip around it. You cannot go halfway and say, oh, hour's up. Got to go. It has to come all the way around in order for you to use a talking circle correctly. So let's say the feather comes all the way around, and then somebody on, say, maybe 4 or 5 people down say, I want to say something. Then you pass this feather around to that person, let them speak, then you pass the feather around person to person to bring it back. It always must go in a complete circle. That's called a talking circle. Now there's another type of circle that can be used. This one can be timed. The other one cannot. So the facilitator would do the same thing. They would start with the object, but when they were done speaking, instead of handing that object to the person to the left, they would take this feather and they would lay it back in the center. You could sometime maybe use like a little table, put a red cloth on it. So then what that is when you feel moved to speak, so then you would say, I'll speak next. So you come up and grab the feather, and then you go back and you sit down, and then you could speak. Then when you were done, you bring it back to the center. Then maybe another person say, well, I want to say something. So that is a different type of talking circle that you can time it. So the person, because sometimes you're in group or you're timing things. So it's at that point where you can say, well, we're going to end this now. And then you end the circle. And you end the circle by repeating to the people. You ask them, remember that the circle was sacred. Would you honor that? What you heard here, who you saw it, what they said, would you leave it here? And then the circle is over.